going to share my screen. So guys, first of all, welcome to the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. Happy to have you all here. So I'd like to thanks to all the organizers for this amazing opportunity to present this series of sessions for beginners, which are very interesting. And well, I hope you enjoy this. Okay. So in this session, we are going to cover some estimation techniques. We're going to talk about some issues with the estimation itself and how to overcome this working in an agile team as well. Okay, so a few words about myself. So I'm a co-founder and faculty director at Flex Growth Group. So what we're doing is we provide some quality courses, quality professional workshops, trainings for anything about Agile and other practices like design thinking and process improvements. Okay. So in this session, as I said, we're going to cover some estimation problems, and we will cover some solutions to these problems. And we're going to review some of the some most popular, let's say, estimation techniques like planning poker, affinity grouping, bucket system, dot voting, and we will have a short and brief introduction to the no estimates movement. Okay, so let's start with the problem. Okay, so it's very popular, right? So let's say when you start working with an agile team as a scrum master or agile coach, well, the first question you would have most likely would be, so how do we estimate things? Okay, so we have our product backlog, we have our sprint backlog, but we have some issues and you know, we do not know how to estimate, right? Or you know, in case you have a project manager with some traditional experience that would say, okay, so I used to estimate in hours. So what should I do, you know, with all these story points and stuff like that? Okay, so, and the problem is that the estimation is relative. It's not an absolute technique. So you don't have any, you know, strict guide or manual that would help you to estimate stuff. Okay, so it's relative. Okay, so how do we solve this problem? Well, what we can do, we can experiment and then compare. So as you can see here, we have the estimation scale. Okay, so we have 1 point, we have 3, 5, 8, and 13. Okay, so what could be done, especially when you're just, you know, a brand new team starts working in an agile environment? Well, it's possible, let's say, to estimate, you know, to draw some comparison with the between hours and points. So for example, look here. So in this case, 1 point is, well, it's an item that would need us to work on it up to 1 day. So it's, let's say, from 1 to 8 hours, right? So 3 points would represent, well, 1 to 3 days of work. So which is 8 to 24 hours. 5, it's 3 to 5 days and 24 to 40 hours. 8, 5 to 8 days work, 40 to 64 hours. And 13 points, well, will represent these 64 to 104 hours of work. Okay, so what we do, first we plan. Okay, so let's imagine that. So we have this estimation scale. It's not necessarily should be this comparison, right? So it could be 1 to 3 hours, 3 to 6, etc., etc. So it depends on the team, but it would be nice, you know, to make it easier and to start from these, you know, 1 day, 1 to 3 days, etc. So let's estimate in days. All right. So, and here we have this loop. So this loop represents this plan. log work, check and compare and adjust. Okay, so plan, okay, we do our planning, we estimate stuff, we estimate our items we would work on during the sprint. So we're good to go. Okay, so this is done before the sprint begins. Then after that, during the sprint, we should log work. Okay, so the most popular tool is Jira. Okay, and most likely if you work in an agile team, you're using Jira or you're using some Azure DevOps or Trello, etc. Okay, so each of these tools have the possibility to log work. Okay, so each team member can log hours of work on the item until it's complete. Okay, and that's it. So at the end of the sprint, you need to check and compare. Okay, so for example, let's say we estimated an item with 3 points. Okay, so 3 points, and then we'll check how many hours has been logged under these items. Okay, so if it's like 8 to 24 hours, so that's okay. Let's say we've got 2 days and 16 hours for these items. So that's okay. And in this case, we're good. Okay. But in some cases, if we, for example, we said, okay, this item would have 1 point. Okay, 1 point. And when we check and compare, we see that, it took 24 hours to complete this item. So most likely, the next time we plan, we need to adjust our estimation for the similar items. So it would be 3 points instead of 1 point. Okay. Any questions about this estimation scale and how to work on this one? You can just unmute yourself and ask a question.
I think it's too early to ask questions. We're just getting started, right?
Yeah, but maybe just you're curious about something or something is a bit unclear. So happy to help.
Yeah,
I'll ask a question, Yury.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone and I'm staring at these little fonts at the moment because I'm on the road. But yeah, it's Samantha Jones. So I suppose my question to you would be, these are great estimates, 40 to 64 hours for your number 8, 5 to 8 days. Obviously, we're not taking into account interruptions. So one would look at, and I hate this word, but it is quite effective to use a perfect engineering day, where it varies obviously between teams. One team might find that they're productive 6.5 hours of the day due to meetings. Another team might find that they're productive 5 hours of the day. So are these days based on that? They're not actually calendar days.
That's right. In fact, this is just working hours. So, right. So a normal work day would have 8 hours of work, right? So these hours we estimate using these hours. So, but in this case, we should pay attention to the engineer's login work, right? Because in case, if, for example, someone would, especially some newbie junior developer, he or she start working on the item, and it's just it keeps working and working and working, but log hours. Okay, oh, I forgot about that. So in this case, we have a slight problem. So and generally, you should pay attention to all of this stuff. It's not just, about how you define, some standard work days, right? But also how you log your work and how accurate you are at doing this. Yeah.
Yes, thanks for that. Because I find this a challenge when you communicate estimates to business. They think if you say 5 days, it'll be done by the end of the week. So I think one needs to set expectations up front.
Yeah. Yes, indeed, because right. So when you're talking to the business, it's more complicated because you have this, right. So the expectations are more like, some deadlines, and it's not really about the deadlines, but about the internal processes the team has. So right, it could be challenging, but there are much more aspects than just estimation, as I said. So well, unfortunately, we won't cover this in this session, but yeah. So like a brief summary would be, Scrum Master and Agile Coach should work with the product owner, and product owner should work with the stakeholders in order to set the expectations correctly. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys, let's go next to the planning poker, right? So planning poker is the most common and the most popular way of estimating product backlog items. So, and let's review the steps. Okay. So first of all, the estimation scale, well, it could be a Fibonacci scale, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, etc. Or it could be a modified sequence like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, 40, and 100. Okay, so these modified sequences dedicated to estimate some larger items, or maybe even some initiatives or epics, etc. Right? So these items usually are quite complicated and required, a thorough breakdown in order to be able to do this, on the team level. Right. So what are the steps? So basically, each team member gets a set of cards. And each card represents this, a number from the scale, right? So 1, 2, 3, 5, etc. So after that, product owner selects an item, and then the team discusses the item, right? So the conversation is started in order to know more details about the item and how to estimate it properly, right? So because the more we know, the easier it is to estimate anything, right? So, and after that, this is the voting time. So, and usually this is like that. So each team member just shows the card with a number, right? So, and if all the team, let's say we picked a number, we picked an item, we discussed it, and each team member says, okay, and that's fine, it's 3 points. Okay, we're good to go. So if all the team is agreed, that's fine. But in case that, for example, imagine that we have 5 persons, and we have 2 persons showed us 5 and 3 persons showed us 3 points. Okay, so in this case, what we need to do, we need to discuss why the persons just choose this instead of just agreed or on some minimal number, or or why it's complicated. Okay, so, and the discussion then ends, and after that we have another voting cycle where we have all the team repeating the voting process until the number is agreed. Okay, any question on that?
I wrote in the chat.
Avnish here. I have a question on this Fibonacci series. I have used it in my work, and it's quite a good way to quantify your work. Do you have any sort of any definition on what 3 means and 5 means? Because those are the discussions which give you some perspective when you speak of 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, or whatever.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So 3 and 5, it's usually, 3 is more complicated than 5. That's it. So we just need to, to define how much is the difference between, the item that is easier to put done comparing with an item, with a 5, right? So it's more complicated. So, and usually it would involve, the effort and the time required to complete this item. So this is basically the difference, right? So, and let's say 3 and 5. So 3 is easier than 5, okay, and 5 is
Right.
easier than 8.
What
Yeah.
is,
I
what
mean,
about,
in my previous experience with Fibonacci, 8 is something when you have 8 in in discussion, it needs to be broken down. 8 is too much, and 13 and 21 is something I've never seen in reality. Teams
Mm-hmm.
using.
Yeah, in fact, if you have a small team, right? So usually you would use from, the scale from 1 to 8, and rarely for up to 13 and 21, etc. We will see further in the presentation when we could use this one. But yes, it's if we're talking about a small team, most likely you would use a scale from 1 to 8. Right, and after that, so yeah, sometimes you need to break down an item which represents 8 points because it's too complex to be completed during the sprint.
Yeah, thanks for clarification.
No problem.
Lurie, just a quick question before you continue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is value in baselining the sort of your medium, like a 5 or 8, depending on your team, based on common work that you do, so that everything else can then be relative to that? So, in terms of effort.
In fact, it depends completely on the team and on the skills the team has, right? So, in fact, that's why we usually do not compare two different teams in terms of, their velocity, which would represent the amount of story points covered and put to done during the sprint, because it's irrelevant. Why is that? Because, for example, I'm a senior developer and I say, okay, so to me, to develop, complete solutions with the front end plus back end database site, etc. Well, an item like that to me it's like 3 points, okay? And I say, okay, yeah, because I'm experienced, I have some hands-on experience with that, and to me it's it's up to 3 days of work, at maximum, and that's it, and I'm done with that. But a junior developer would say, oh my God, I have no experience on the back end side, so I would need to to investigate, to ask my senior colleagues for help, and it would take long to respond to them, for example, right, because they are busy doing their own stuff, etc. So to me it's 13 points. Well, basically because I don't have all the necessary skills to complete this, and to be able to complete, I would require a lot more time comparing to my senior colleagues, right? So that's why we couldn't say that that there is a concrete number that would represent some middle range for the team, but it depends more on the skills you have available on the team.
Great. So how would you overcome the challenge that you've just mentioned with estimation? You're sitting in an estimation session, one member of the team, very skilled, says it's a 3, another member of the team who's new says it's a 13, but you're not sure who's actually going to do the work during the sprint.
That's why the team should discuss this, who's going to take this item to complete. So if, our junior colleague would take this item, okay, so we would estimate it as 13 and we will help him or her to complete it in time. But it could be the case that in case the item is prioritized and it has high priority, most likely the team should say, okay, we're going to, to assign John to work on this, who's our senior developer, to complete it fast and in a timely fashion, because we need it, we need it to be done fast, because otherwise we won't be able to, to show it on the sprint review, etc. So the team should decide, and this is the challenge. So Scrum Master and Agile Coach should help and coach the team on how to to facilitate this conversation, to be able to resolve this kind of issues. And well, but in fact, fact, in general, that's okay. That's okay. And as I said, it depends completely on the team. So, but what should team and the Scrum Master do is to facilitate the conversation and dialogue between the team members in order to be able to, find the best solution.
I think you raised some very good points, Avnish here. And when we say we are discussing an item, I assume that it is written in a very good way. It's a good user story, which has a defined acceptance criteria and what it is about. Then, of course, it will make it easier for the team to make an estimation in terms of story points or whatever methodology you use. I think it boils down to the fact how good the user story was written. Did it
Hmm.
had acceptance criteria, and of course, those things will play a key role when you assign points eventually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. That's great. One more thing that I want to put in, and I know your time is limited, but one challenge that I have, which I would appreciate some input from your side,
Hmm.
is when one uses pair programming or extreme programming,
Yeah.
how does that affect the estimates in terms of the
Well,
team?
Well, if the pair programming is done well, it will affect very positively on the team, right? So because when you have a peer who would could be a senior developer, etc. To help you on your task, it should be it should accelerate the development of the functionality. So that's why if it's done well, in this case, you should benefit hugely, in fact, from this practice, right? So, but in case, we should also pay attention because, there could be a conflict between, senior and junior developer. Maybe they are not, a good pair. So we need to, to review it to see if there's a good, another peer that would work better with this, concrete person. But yeah, overall, it's very good practice to apply.
Thank you, Lurie. Very valuable. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right. So yeah, now let's review the pros and cons of the planning pocket. So it's easy. Well, as we just saw, so it's suitable for beginners, but the conversations that we have during planning sessions could be too long, and it would be too time consuming. So that's why it could be a bit complicated, to complete sprint planning in time, right? So I don't know if we have enough time because I'd like to show you some, some demo session of this, how planning pocket is done. So I'm going to paste the link into the chat. So, and I'm going to need let's say 3 or 4 person to join this link, and we could try to, to arrange a quick session. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So, and imagine that we have this, this user management. This is an epic, right? So it's a huge functionality in some plain words, and we have this product backlog item, right? Create login form. Okay. So, and I say let's say, imagine that I am a product owner, and I say, okay, guys, we have this user story, create login form. What do you think about that? So the people who are at the table in the session of this planning pocket online, can you tell me what would be the complications? It doesn't matter if you don't have a developer or technical background. Just imagine that let's do it quickly. Okay, login form, what would be the complications? What do you think? How much time would it take to complete this this functionality, this piece of functionality, let's say?
A 5.
5. Okay, why is that?
Because that's a medium, and I don't know what it entails to do a login form.
That's
But
right.
that was a guess.
Okay. Anyone else?
How can you put a number or something you don't know anything about?
That's right. That's right. So we need to discuss. That's the point, right? So we need to start a discussion about that, right? So login form, right? That's right. So we would require a front end. So we would require something, you know, some user interface the user would interact with, right? And we need as well, you know, a backend part, because if it's not connected to the database and so on, so it would be just, you know, it would be just a picture of this login form, but it wouldn't be a real login form that would, you know, check, you know, against the database in order to, you know, to validate the user, right? So, and we do not know, right? That's right. That was a good point. That was a good point. So we do not know. Okay, that's right. And let's show the cards. Let's see. So it's 5, 5, 3, 3, 3, 1, and 2, right? So, and we could, let's say, we could continue our conversation. As for example, DevX, why would you put 1 to this?
I made a login screen in my previous project. So I think it's just 2 fields on a web page, and then validate credentials against database.
Okay, perfect. That's right. That's right. Okay, and let's ask Aga, why did you put 5?
Because I'm not sure what way we want to allow our users to log, via Gmail or Facebook or any other way. And what if he wants to take his password again because he has forgotten all those issues.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, so we have some, you know, we had some points. So we have an experienced member on our team who can do this easily, right? So, and he just put it as 1, right? So, and we could start a new voting cycle. So as you can see, it's a bit time consuming, because we just start talking and we need to come to an agreement, right? So that's why, that's it. So, and I think, you know, it should be clear for now. So how we do that, right? Because, and then I just start a new voting session and we just, you know, and I just put 1 because I know that we have our senior member as 1, and let's see what the other guys would put. Because in fact, if it's convincing, that's okay, right? So, okay, I think Andrea and Dex just left.
No, I'm here, but I didn't hear the question.
No, it's not the question. It's we just continue our voting cycle, right? So we continue our voting cycle after we've got some feedback from Devex and from Aga, right? So and after that, we need to vote again.
Yes, we are trying to get the same opinion. I don't remember how it's in English, but
That's
yes.
right. That's right. That's correct. Okay, so Devex, are you there to choose the card?
Yeah, Avnish here. There's a good comment from Jack in the chat that a user story should have an acceptance criteria. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. So that's right. So, but this is just an example. That's right. So this example is just, you know, it's you know, it's non-refined backlog item. That's why it's really complicated. But the purpose is not that, you know, not doing a refinement session, but just, you know, to show you how to, you know, the dynamic of this technique. Okay. So in here, like you see, so we have 1 1 3 3 and 5. So that's right. And you see, so we do that until we come to an agreement, right? So, and after that, this was a good comment, right? So what about the acceptance criteria? And I say, okay, the acceptance criteria would be to have, you know, to have the user to put his or her email and password. And after that, these credentials would be checked against the database, and if it's okay, if it's valid, right? So the user would be able to log in to the application. Okay, so that's it, right? So now we know acceptance criteria and so on. So this conversation, you know, would lead us to. Okay. So yeah, as I said, this conversation would lead us to, you know, to estimate it correctly, right? Or in some cases, you know, when we're stuck estimating that, so and like I said, we have a senior member, which is Devex, and the team would ask, okay, so Devex, are you ready to take this item, all right, so to work during a sprint? And he says, okay, I'm going to put it as a 1 point, because in my case it would be fast. Okay, so and if the team agrees on that, so that this is 1 point for this item, we are good to go. Okay, so that was it. Any additional question, guys, on this technique?
Yeah, I was curious to understand how long this estimation takes for one item. I mean, do you have any average for an average team size of 7 to 9 members, let's say? How long one estimation exercise would take?
Well, let's see, because you know, if we do all the stuff, you know, according to the Scrum guide, and we have, let's say, 4 hours for sprint planning, and we have like 7 to 9 persons in the team. Well, it depends, because the first planning most likely would be the most complicated, because, you know, we do not know too much about the product, about the items, and we need to ask many questions to product owner, yeah, in order to be able to understand whether it's do we have acceptance criteria in place, you know, do we have a clear scenario for the particular functionality and so on. Okay, so, and it depends, so, you know, like 5 to 10 minutes could be easily done to estimate 1 item. But this is an example. You know, it depends completely on the team. So if the team you know, manages itself like that, like, you know, we have a senior team member and he's okay to work on this item, okay, let's just assign this item to him, and he will work to put it done fast, and that's it, and that's fine. That's completely fine. So it depends on how your team communicates itself.
Yep, thanks.
Okay,
But
no
you
problem.
don't have to you need to have all the same result, or it's not necessary. You can,
In fact, it's in some cases it's not necessary when the team says it's okay that some of us would take this work and do it fast. Okay, so, and this team member would place some points to this work, like, you know, accordingly to the to his or her expectations. Okay, so as Devex said, okay, to me it's easy. I'm going to put it 1. Okay, I'm going to estimate it as 1 point for this user story, and I'm going to do it fast. And that's it. If the team agrees, that's fine. If it's not, well, let's see. Let's continue the conversation to understand what's the best way to proceed. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, guys. Let's review the next. Let's review the next point. Okay, so this was planning book. So now we have.
Hi, Yury, could I ask another question there?
Yes, go ahead.
So I think Gizem has touched on this on the chat as well. Basically, the whole thing about estimation is ideally you don't want to do it based on individual, like who would be working on it. It has to be a bit generic instead of tying it to the person. But obviously there is that conflict where as Scrum Masters, for example, trying to get optimal work done, you try and figure out who would be best fit to do the job as well. And therefore estimation takes into account, for example, in this example that you covered, DevX doing the job, and therefore you take into account that estimation. Now, what is the right balance there in trying to draw the right conclusion instead of, because otherwise people can come into the Scrum meeting, the planning meeting, with pre-assigned tasks, which the Scrum Master would have pre-allocated based on priorities and skill sets. And then they just they roll out their estimations saying, I've already pre-estimated this to be a 3 or whatever else. And only if there's a conflict, others are going to, probably question that. And that's when estimation can fall over completely. So what are your thoughts on that?
So when you say estimation to fall over completely, what do you mean? You mean that there's no need in estimating the items or something else?
As in,
I'm not sure I quite followed.
As in the results, it's more prone to error because people have pre-estimated based on the tasks they've been allocated. And then you come into the meeting and you kind of accept or give the benefit of doubt of those estimations. And that's when the planning numbers might not, it's more error prone.
Okay, well, the idea is not to pre-allocate the items, right? The idea is the team does its refinement, right? So because we need to allocate sometimes to do refinement sessions in order to have better defined product backlog items, right? Review all the acceptance criteria, review how the story is written, and so on and so forth. And after that, if the team says, we have some time during the sprint, to think about this or that item, and to us it's clear and we're able to estimate it accurately, there's no issue with that, right? But the issue is, as you said, then when you pre-allocate the task, so some team member says, okay, I'm going to do that, but in fact he or she is wrong in this assumption, and the team member, as the result, is not able to complete the task during the sprint. Well, that's an issue, and here is where we need to have some additional coaching practices in place from the Scrum Master.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. All right, so let's review the affinity grouping, right? So this technique is based, also it could be based on Fibonacci or modified sequence scale, as well as on t-shirt sizes, or sometimes we just do not need scale, but it's a rare case, right? So usually we use t-shirt sizes or Fibonacci sequence. So let's say how we proceed with this technique. So the first item when we have our meeting, so the first item is read to the team members and placed on the wall, right? So let's say this item would represent some, some reference point, right? After that, so the second item is read. So, and we ask a question if it's smaller or larger than the first item, if it's, easier or more complicated than the first item, right? So the team responses, and after that, we place the third item, right? So, and usually, let's say, usually the first item, we would place it to the center of the wall, right? So, and the second item, if it's smaller, we would place it to the left. If it's larger, we would place it to the right. So, and after that, so the third item is read, as I said, and we ask the same question to the team, right? So if it's more complex or easier than compared to the second item. So, and after the team responses, we are in a good fit to estimate the rest of the items. Okay, so this is basically it. So let's see, I have another board here. So let's see here. So in this case, we have the affinity grouping board, and we've got, let's say, some items, right? So they are, relatively raw in terms of that. So we don't have any acceptance criteria, but it's just more of, some training purposes. So we have like some search by reservation number functionality. We have search by username functionality. We have change reservation API call. So, and this is 5, right? So the team says, well, these items are similar, and that's fine. But if we start from the scratch, right? So, and let's say I'm going to choose this search by reservation number. That's fine, and we put it to the center and take it as a reference point. After that, we choose another item from the product backlog, and that says, okay, upload profile image. Well, and the team is asked, okay, so if this item is more complex than search by reservation number, for example, and the team says, no, it's not that complicated for us to complete. Okay, so that's why it's placed to the left. And after that, we choose the third item, which is make room details available via API. Okay, and team has been asked again. So how do you think? Is it more complex than search by reservation number or upload profile image? And the response is yes, it's more complicated to us. Well, so we think that it's it would take much more time to complete. That's why it's been placed here, right? Because it's more complicated, right? And after that, the rest of items can be estimated, like you see, create new user and create login form. It's well, the team says, okay, it's really easy to us to do. Okay, now we place it here, and well, and the last item here, integrate with third party. Okay, the response here is that, we have a lot of things to do here, so it's the most complicated item from all of this. So, and that's why it's put here. Okay, now let's review pros and cons of this method. So it's easy, it's fast, it's very suitable for beginners, so you shouldn't be an expert to use this method, but it lacks of granularity because it could be a bit complicated to to have a deeper conversation to estimate or even let's say it's more about granularity, because maybe if you are using this method, more refinement sessions needed to to refine the item better. So also it's as a con for this, it's appropriate for a small number of items and a small number of people. So a small team where you have some small number of items, well, it's fine to estimate like that. But if you have you know, a larger team and a huge amount of items, it's not that good, because it would be too time consuming. So, and as I said, additional effort to estimate some items would be required, well, in terms of refinement sessions. Any questions on this one?
Are you going to talk about confidence and other factors that kind of play in, you know, experience on the platform that you're targeting, experience of the developers in the teams, a team who's going to estimate this and those kind of things?
So in this case, as I said, it depends on the team, and it depends on how you, you know, and how you establish the estimation scale, as I showed at the beginning of the presentation. So here, you see, so here you can run some experiments, right? So you can establish these relations between points and hours and days, right? After that, run sprints and then check and compare to see whether what you estimated was accurate or not, right? And in this case, if it's not accurate, you need to review this. You need to raise this point to the team to see what's the problem here, okay? So, and if there's lack of skills, well, it's another question. So you need to cover this point separately, right? So providing some trainings and so on. Was it your question, or you'd like to know something else?
Oh, so anybody can make an estimate, but only a few people can make an accurate estimate, right?
That's right. That's the problem, right? Because it's relative, right? That's right. So, and the only way to, you know, to solve this is to run experiments until you're accurate in your estimates. So, and it requires time. So it's absolutely impossible, you know, to have accurate estimates in the first 3 to 5 sprints in a brand new team. It's almost impossible. But the Scrum Master job is to, you know, to pay attention to that, and you know, and talk to the team. You know. Schedule meetings to check and compare at the end of the sprint, you know, or maybe during the retrospective could be also an option to see whether it was fine and accurate, or it was, you know, a complete disaster, which could be the case. So you know, and that's why, you know, learning these lessons would help the team to improve you know, the accuracy of their estimates. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the dev team, so and I'm actually have a waterfall background, but you know, and I know a little bit Scrum, but in waterfall, you know, we work off requirements, and we make a technical specification where we kind of study the implementation that the approach we want to use, and we make scopes and estimate based on a sort of detailed study of the technical specification. And I think the same thing happens in Agile. It's just smaller scale. It's time boxed to you know, the length of your sprint. What part of the requirement can you do in 2 weeks, if that's your time box? And what is the priority? You know, what is, you know, login screen seems like it's a pretty important piece. If you're making a web app, you know, you should be able to log in so you can, you know, you will have an identity and a role in that system, because all components are based, depend on a user that's logged in and has a role. So logging, you know, it's high priority probably in the beginning of the project.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, let's say the most important that, you know, the more is learned, the easier it is to estimate. So that should be the approach the team should have, right? So you just need to, you know, the most important is that I don't know whether you check and compare. So, you know, so what's been estimated to what's been done and delivered at the end of the sprint. So if you do this thing, it's good. If you don't, it would be a good practice to start doing this, because it would help you to, you know, to involve the whole team into this practice. You know, so it's like, okay, so we estimated this and we estimated that. Was it accurate? Okay, it was good, but this item wasn't accurate at all. So the estimation was, you know, completely incorrect. So in this case, there should be, you know, there should be some things to be done in order to improve the estimation of the similar items in the future.
Yeah, there might also be some initial project setup that only happens in the beginning of a project, like CI/CD or build pipelines or you name it. And then actually estimation will improve, you know, after that initial. So the first sprints that's actually cannot be used at all for baselining, but at some point in time they get in a groove or in a rhythm where things become more predictable and known.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I agree, Thomas. Firstly, one has to collect the data in first few sprints, so to get the right picture where the velocity is and so on. So when you have that stability in terms of velocity, one could predict, okay, this is our baseline, and later how we could use it as a baseline, so to speak. And I agree with what Yury said about logging the actual time it takes to do the job for a particular item. So logging is really good practice, and then you could have the data on variance and accuracy, as Yuri said. So those metrics could be used to further adapt your estimation criteria and so on. So that's really a good practice to do, especially for new teams.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So okay, let's review the next one. The next one is the bucket system, right? So we could think of a bucket system as a, you know, as a variation on the affinity grouping, right? So because this dynamic is quite similar, but it's a bit different in some sense. So let's see. So usually for a bucket system, we use Fibonacci or modified sequence scale. And so we define the buckets, right? So we define the buckets. So as we can see at this picture, so it's 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and 5 to 5. So 55 is the most, you know, it's the largest bucket here. So what's the dynamic? So first of all, we choose an item, then read it to the team and place it in the bucket 8, right? So which would be a reference item. Now, after that, we choose the second item. We read it to the team, and then the team says, okay, so let's place it in the bucket, I don't know, 3 or 5, right? So, and we do the same for the third item. So in this case, it's very similar to what we've done for the affinity grouping. And after that, the team estimate the rest of the items. And the last step here for the bucket system would be to review what's been done and make any adjustment needed in order to, you know, to correct, to fix some of the items, so the estimation for some of the items. So pros and cons of this system is that it's easy, it's fast, it's very appropriate for to estimate a large number of items and in a larger team, right? So it's also good to include some large initiatives, right? So it's not necessarily should be you know, very granular items, but it could be, you know, some larger initiative that we could estimate at larger scale, right? At let's say at higher level, and after that, the team could work on these initiatives to breaking it down into some smaller pieces of work to be delivered during the sprint. Okay, so and cons is that for this some agile maturity is required because it's not that easy, to estimate it fast. When you have a large amount of items, so and the team should be, really coordinated to complete this task in time. And as I said, some of the larger items would require additional refinement sessions to be broken down into smaller pieces. Okay, so any questions on this one? Okay, yeah, it's really, as I said, it's really similar to affinity grouping, but for the large amount of items.
I just missed the last point in prose. I didn't quite follow. What do you mean good to include large initiatives?
In this case, it depends on what you have in your product backlog. Sometimes it's these are relatively smaller items. They are, relatively granular, right? So it's like create a login form, or add some post button and so on, right? But large initiatives, I mean that, for example, these are a complete functionality. That, for example, the complete for example, let's say if we're talking about some, I don't know, hotel management application or web application, like the complete cancel registration process, right? So this is a large initiative because it's a large flow, which should be broken down into some small pieces of work, because it's virtually impossible to deliver it during one sprint. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got the hunch. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no problem. All right, and we have dot voting, right? The next one is dot voting. Dot voting, in fact, is a prioritization technique, first of all, right? But it could be, it could be done when you have, a really, really small backlog and a really small team, and, a really simple project, and you just need to prioritize items, right? So how it's done? We just post the user stories on the wall. And then we just, each team member has a pen or a marker to put to draw a dot on the item on the post-it card or whatever it is, right? So, and during the voting cycle, we just, draw these points on this items, and after that we just prioritize the items that have large amount of dots, right? So let's say, and if we're talking about estimation scale, usually it's just 1 dot equal 1 point, right? So it's not really a strict Fibonacci or modified sequence scale, but it's really, really simple simple scale, because here, as you can see on the picture, right? So user story 3 has 4 points, number 2 has 3 points, number 5 2, number 1 2, and number 4 1. So when we just we see that prioritization cycle's been done here, so we just have all this story arranged, and that's it, right? It's easy, it's fast, but as I said, so it's only appropriate for some small amount of items, because if you have a large amount of items, it would be complicated. You would lack of granularity, and you would need more refinement sessions to be able to to establish acceptance criteria, and to clarify on each backlog items in this case. So that's it. Any questions regarding this one? Okay, and the last one, no estimates. Right, so what no estimates is? No estimates is a movement, right, where instead of establishing some estimation scale, and establishing some relations like hours, points, and so on, we just count user stories done per sprint, instead of counting story points, right? So our velocity in this case would be the amount of story points done during the sprint. That easy. So, but there are some complications on that, right? So it seems to be easy and it's quite flexible, but it usually works only on the mature team. because it's let's say it's really complicated to just start off with a brand new project and brand new team telling that, okay, so we're going to count just our user stories, and as we don't have any internal processes well established, right? So we don't have the team doesn't know how it behaves during the sprint, so they don't have any experience working together maybe, and some other aspects. So, and that's why it does make counting user stories and using this let's say using this technique as a beneficial one for the team. So usually we need to the team should be experimented enough to try to use this technique. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, this will
Yury, yes, sorry, you go ahead.
probably work better later in a like you can switch from one to another, like to this in the end of the project.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because the team is experienced enough, so they know their stuff. They know what could be the complications on the project and so on. So yeah, because we know more, and we could act appropriately.
Yury,
Yes,
I don't want to interrupt your flow, and it's great to see you getting all these questions and great engagement. How much longer do you think you're going to need? Because as you know,
we are reaching the end, so just a few more minutes and we're done. Yeah.
5 minutes. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Samantha.
Yes, sorry. I love this. I love hashtag no estimates. I think for a team that's very mature, amazing. However, as a coach, I have concerns in terms of what metrics do you give the business? So how do you communicate to the business in terms of metrics? And I'm not talking about delivery, because obviously the teams a mature team's delivering constantly, but business people want predictions. They want to predict what's going to happen. So my first question is, how do you predict in terms of hashtag no estimates? And secondly, do you think that this hashtag no estimates is moving more into the Kanban world?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question, because your predictions in this case are based on your experience. Okay, so and this is purely relative stuff. In fact, that's why, as you said, so the business needs some, some predictions, some metrics, some numbers to rely on. And in this case, it's like, the team says, okay, we're going to deliver this and that. And this is quite a good question. That's quite a good question. What metrics would you use to show, to show how team has been working, so if the product is successful and so on. So in this case, I think we should take a look into the evidence-based management to see what would be the appropriate metrics for our project to establish, right? So it's not necessarily should be some internal teams metrics, right, like velocity, or any technical related metrics like technical depth or amount of defects and so on, but it could be some metrics like customer satisfaction, how frequently the product is used, amount of clicks done, when the new functionality has been delivered into production environment, and so on. So yeah, and regarding to the to your last question about Kanban, yes, it could be a nice alternative for an operational or maintenance team to use, so just if let's imagine a support team working on the tickets, and so the more experienced you are working on the tickets, the more knowledge you have, okay, this one is easy, I'm going to I'm going to done it easily, and finish it fast. But in case if it's some complicated stuff, yeah, okay, I will need more time, and we could manage our flow appropriately. Yeah.
That's great. I would imagine that hashtag no estimates would be applicable in an environment that's very mature. Well, an organization in itself that's very mature in agility from top down.
Yeah, I agree here, because if you just implement this in an organization where where they do not know what agile leadership is, what evidence-based management is, it would be really complicated to convince them that this approach is a valid one. But instead of they just say, okay, but we don't see any value or any it's counterintuitive, I'd say. So yeah, it could be the case. Yeah. So yeah, this is a good to go for a mature team.
Samantha and Yury, what do you think about cycle time? That is a good metrics to track in such cases.
Yeah, lead time or cycle time would be the good ones to try. Indeed.
Yeah, I agree. But you're still looking at metrics then to solve a problem or improve, find improvements or opportunities to improve. Whereas no estimation means that you're at the top of your game, in my personal opinion. But I understand we've run out of time, but Yury, thank you so much. This has been so valuable for me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Samantha. Thank you. Okay, guys, and indeed we're done. So these are some links with some interesting articles to read. So I'm going to provide a PDF. I'm going to upload a PDF to the Meetup website, so you would be able to download it from here. So thank you very much, everyone, and well, have a nice day. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Yury.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Yury. Well done. Good session.
Thank you. Great.
Indeed, a good session. Thanks.
Thanks for joining, folks.